This week we are going to talk about rhythm. So, rhythm is usually a word that we hear in music, but you can also have rhythm in the visual arts. Some of my favorite artists that I feel like show really good rhythm in their pieces are Kandinsky and Miro. I love their work. I love how musical their art feels. It's amazing to me that you can see something and you can almost hear it as well. Rhythm in art is when you feel an underlying beat. So it's hard. I feel like this is super hard to explain, but it's really easy to see when something has rhythm. So I'm actually going to show you an example of this cute little container that my sister got me. And you can feel the rhythm of this pattern that's on this container. So rhythm in music, you use sound. You can use a drum beat, or you can use instruments, guitar strings. There's clearly a lot of ways, and rhythm is extremely important in music. In fact, they count the measures. You can have a 4/4 rhythm. In art, it's a little less specific, but in art we use the elements of art to create rhythm. So we use lines and shape and color to create rhythm. One of the easiest ways to create rhythm is by repetition, which is what was happening here on this cute little pattern. Is even though it's not the same, the arrows are all going down, and then there's the lines, and then there's another row of arrows and lines and arrows and lines. So there's a definite repetition in that, even though it's not exact. The colors aren't exact. So repetition can be lines, shapes, colors. A less obvious one would be texture. You can even have rhythm in your spacing. So I'm going to show you an example of that with pattern. So when we have a planned pattern, the space between the dots is going to be exact. So even our spacing can create rhythm by the absence of having dots. So, or we can do a more random piece, which means that the spacing isn't exact. But there's still the element, or there's still the design principle of pattern and rhythm, even though the spacing isn't the same. It's just less planned. Okay, so in talking about rhythm, when we think of rhythm, I think the first thing that does come to mind is music, because it's such an obvious and important element in music. In music, they use terms like legato and staccato. So when I played the violin and we would do a staccato, we would actually not use our bow, but we would pluck the strings, and it would make sharp, small, abrupt noise. So we can use musical terms of rhythm and translate those into visual elements. So a legato feels connected and flowing. So if you were trying to make a rhythm in art that's legato, you might use softer colors, longer lines, and have it be more calm and horizontal. Whereas a staccato would be thinking of plucking strings, plucking, or sharp, quick pressing of the piano. So I think that it would be a fun translation or experiment to collect a bunch of musical terms and create rhythm using the visual arts to do those things. I think the best way that you can experience rhythm also is to watch a YouTube video where they're playing music and art is happening as they're playing music, that's designed to go along with that art. Or another great example is playing music and someone is dancing to that music. That is also a beautiful form of art that I wish I was coordinated enough to do. I have never been a graceful dancer. This is rhythm. So thinking in terms of rhythm in art is another design principle that you can use in your artwork. For our note card today, we are going to make a little roller. So there's a couple different ways that you could make this roller. You can use, what I am using today is bubble wrap from a package and a toilet paper roll. And I'm going to cut this bubble wrap and wrap it around my toilet paper roll so that the bubbles are on the outside. And then I'm going to roll it in paint and use it as a roller. So a roller is great to create pattern or rhythm because it continues. So you could do this with my favorite little tool, my Play-Doh rolling pin. I use that all the time. And you could use other shapes like styrofoam shapes, and you could create patterns on your toilet paper roll and then roll them in ink and then roll it across your card. I've also seen where people use a lint roller, which is very convenient because it's already sticky, so you can stick your shapes on that. Okay, so I'm going to mark the line here. And if you have double-sided sticky tape, that probably would work the best. I'm gonna try and stick it on with my tape that I have here. I thought of another thing that would make an excellent stamp is a sponge. You can buy those at the dollar store. Just kitchen sponges, and then cut them up and make stamps with those. I don't know if this is gonna work, but I wonder, my thoughts are, if I try to glue this, it might take a long time to dry. So I would like the tape to work. I think I just have to put more tape on. Most of the time it's just better to be patient. So I probably should just use glue and be patient. But that is so much less fun to have to wait. So we'll see. We will see. All right, I'm gonna try this out. All right, there we go. It looks like there's more paint on this side. That's cute. I like that over the top of the colors. Have a colored background, especially over those colors because they're cool colors. That was very simple, and I feel like maybe even too simple. I had fun with that, but I don't feel like it is enough. There's a balance between too much and not enough, and I feel like that is not enough yet. So I'm gonna keep on trying to find more objects I can put on this roll and maybe roll it across this direction. So my intention here, and the thing I'm keeping in mind the whole time, is I'm trying to create the feeling of rhythm. So, like we've discussed already, the greatest way to do that is to add pattern. But when you look at artists like Kandinsky, I don't necessarily feel like his pieces had specific patterns as much as they really were just colors and shapes and lines. So I think there's a lot of ways to accomplish this, to accomplish rhythm. And it doesn't have to be so obvious with patterns. But patterns are an easy way, so that's why we are doing them for this card project. Random pattern here. I love these cards, not necessarily because I think they turn out really beautiful or anything like that, but because I love the thought process, or just like being, I feel like they really tap into being in the zone, where you have a simple idea, like I'm trying to create rhythm, and then as you sit here with your supplies, ideas just pop into your head. Like, I used my roll to make the prints, but now I think I'm going to use the edge of it to make a pattern on this card. I didn't really plan on that. That's not why I grabbed the roll of toilet paper, or the end of the roll of toilet paper. It just came to me, and I think it's fun. That's the most enjoyable part of being creative and taking the opportunity, taking the time to do something creative. Not for the end result, but for the process. All right, for our project, I wanted to first start out by brainstorming a few ideas of rhythm. So what kinds of things naturally have rhythm? Music has rhythm. I was thinking even like waves. If you're sitting at the ocean, the waves are very rhythmic and calming. To go along with music, I was thinking of watching like old records playing, old records or CDs spinning. What other things have rhythm? Your heartbeat. Bouncing ball like a basketball. So those are just a couple of things. I know that you can come up with a far better list than that. Those are just some things that I'm thinking. And so on top of that, now, as an extension of that, on the back of my paper, I'm going to draw a couple thumbnail sketches of ideas of pictures. So going along with the music idea, or the old records, if you look at them, and you think of spinning records, they have all of their lines that I don't know what the actual term of the like arm that comes out and plays the music. Maybe a new age one, a CD. I actually have a CD right here you can look at. I think the rainbow effect of that is really cool. So somehow try to get that in there. So maybe while you're creating this picture, if you decide to do this style of picture, you can listen to your favorite music and think of the colors that come to mind, and the shapes are already kind of decided for us because they're circular. But there's an old record that I have, and you can see the lines in that, and doesn't have the rainbow reflection that the CD has, but it definitely does the same light thing. So it'd be fun to try and capture the lines or the brush stroke of that. think of it as like spinning, making sound. So that's an idea. Another idea that I had is waves, sound waves, or waves of the ocean. Drawing a wave and then drawing lines off of that wave as a response to the wave. Right. Oh, I just thought of another thing that has rhythm: chimes. I don't know what kind of picture you would do to make the feeling of chimes. I feel like if I did a chime picture, it'd have to be this way though. That just feels right to me. I actually have a really pretty chime in my library den, and it has shells on it. Of different colors. Maybe drawing a picture of that. Or even closer. Maybe really zoomed in so you only see part of it. And now I'm gonna have a hard time deciding which one I wanted to do. Originally, I wanted to do the CD one, but I know this is gonna be like chimey and beautiful and like perfect with lots of colors and watercolor and transparent layers. So this one I would do with watercolor and transparent layers, and this one is a little more like solid sound, so I would have done it with acrylic and tried to get different brush strokes and mixing with acrylic. And this one, I have no idea what I would do for that one. I don't know if I would break up the space a little more with lines, or I don't know. I can see it just being like lots of different colors of blues and greens. Probably watercolor because it's a wave, like the ocean wave. So if I'm going for an ocean feel, it'd be interesting because I drew this out of my head, what I kind of think my chime looks like. But it'd be interesting after I painted the picture to see like what the chime actually looks like as opposed to my memory of the chime. So personality wise, I would say my personality or style kind of resonates with these two more, but I think just trying to go out on a limb, trying to expand or do something different, I'm gonna try this one. I'm actually going to use my CD that I have here, and I'm gonna draw a few. I'm gonna use it to draw some circles on my paper. And I'm wondering, with this giant disc, I am going to trace one of them, maybe two. ironically, I think that because of the size of my paper, I'm going to have to do these ones as my vinyl, and then I'm going to do some smaller circles to represent my CDs. I'm being pretty intuitive about where I'm deciding to put these things, but I am trying to follow some sort of line here, or implied line. I am trying to give it some motion or some structure. And then to finish it off, I'm going to use a ruler, and I'm going to draw those the shiny lines that this could be a statement piece on the history of music or technology. The old and the new taking over the old. So I've just done a bunch of lines, and I'm not actually sure which lines will end up being in the final piece. I'm going to start filling it in with some colors. I'm going to play some music and see what colors pop into my mind when I listen to that music, how it makes me feel, and what colors best describe that feeling. And then I'm just going to start coloring, start filling in stuff. All right, for this first section, I'm taking a really dry brush and I'm just loading a little bit of paint. And so this is what we call the dry brush technique. And I want it to have a lot of texture. So the more paint that I use, the smoother the texture. The less paint that I use, the more you see the paper through it. So I really tried to have a balance of texture on this. I wanted it to look like the record. You'll also notice that I'm following the contour of the record, so I'm going in circular lines. Okay, so I was listening to, it turned out to be kind of melancholy music, so I picked some grayer tones, and also the singer was female, so pink comes to mind, but I realized that pink doesn't have to be a feminine color, it's just what it is to me. So, and my response to what I was listening to. Here I've switched to a smaller brush to add the fine details. That's how I generally work. I work from largest down to the smallest brush, and largest shapes down to the smallest shapes. I love the feel of the texture of this. It actually really gives me the feeling of the vinyl. And I think that the colors are fun and they're working for me. My only thing is just it feels unfinished. It feels very raw. And I'm trying to decide if I'm okay with that or not. Originally I thought that I would use more of these lines that I made, but I really simplified that down. So I don't know if coming back in and glazing over the top of some of those lines would make it feel more finished, or if I like just the feeling of the unfinished and the movement of it all. Okay, so what I decided was I really like the wispy edges, and so instead of trying to make it more finessed and go back through and deliberately make all the lines perfect and everything, I'm going to deliberately make them imperfect. So some of these things, as this is the background and this is in the foreground, I'm going to make a new line for that so that it's going over the top. I like the idea of it being less crisp because it is moving, it's in motion. The discs are playing and music is coming from them. So this is a point where I find doing mixed media is so useful too, because you can get the right medium for the job that you want done. So I always have a hard time when people ask me, what kind of art do I do? What medium do I like? And I like a lot of different mediums because of their functions and the way that they work for me. And it partly could be because of my inability to make decisions. I like to keep my options open. I have commitment issues. It's actually really hard for me to leave the lines, or lack thereof, the edges, not perfect. My there's a part of me that just wants to go back in and draw pencil lines or pen lines or outlines, something. It's hard for me to let go and let it be space. And blocking in. I'm an outliner. I like things to be outlined. So it's hard for me to just let the color be the edge and not have it be perfect. And knowing when that's okay. It would bother me if someone looked at this and felt like it wasn't finished. But honestly, I mean, it's the artist that gets to decide whether the piece is finished or not. And so I guess that is part of the conversation of the art piece and the viewer is, why would the artist leave the edges like that? Sometimes I get too caught up in wanting people to like it or understand it, or I get too worried about what people will think rather than focusing on my intention. That's why it's really good to have a purpose and intention for this, for your art, so that you know if you are working towards that. Here in this piece, it's rhythm. And when I sit with that word, rhythm, and what it means to me, this piece is working. This music, it can be sad, it can be exciting, it can be feminine, it can be old, it can be new. If you can't guess what kind of music I listen to, I'm very eclectic, which might again be my inability to make a decision or narrow my options and make a commitment even in my music. So inevitably your art is a reflection of you, whether you really dive into that deep reflection or whether it's just fun and it's just on the surface. That's totally up to you. I don't think that you have to tear apart every piece of artwork to find deeper meaning. But anyway, for me, this is as far as I want to go with this piece. Although I kind of, so here was my other thing is I want it to feel like rhythm and music and have a little bit of motion in it. But I didn't want it to literally be CDs. And so it is a struggle for me. This line here, I almost want to go underneath it and make it feel like this is on top and there's a shadow underneath. But I'm trying to avoid making any sort of form. I want the shapes to speak for themselves. So maybe I could have had more contrast here so that it didn't feel like they were too close together, but I don't know. If my eye keeps going to that point and it keeps being bothered, I'm going to have to find a solution for it. For now, I'm just going to sit with this piece and, you know, that's a good idea to hang up the piece on the wall or somewhere where you'll see it often and kind of live with it. I always live with all of my pieces before I ever sell them because I want to make sure that they're finished, they're complete. And sometimes there's times when something just keeps catching my eye, or it's kind of like simmering food, or not simmering, I guess simmering or marinating, or the ideas marinate like in a petri dish. Your ideas sit there and things happen as you live with them. So anyway, I'm gonna take the tape off and call it a day.